And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake, manténganse despiertos, en el nombre del Padre y al Hijo y al Espíritu Santo. Amén. Pregunta para ustedes. ¿Cuándo decoran para Navidad? When is the best time to decorate for Christmas? When is your family's favorite time to decorate for Christmas? If you go to a store, though many of us aren't really going to stores that often lately, but if you go to the store, you'll see the Christmas decorations are put out and ready for sale even before Halloween. And it feels like it just keeps getting earlier, doesn't it? For some people, the Christmas season begins when Santa goes by at the end of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Others try to wait until at least the weekend after Thanksgiving, and I know a lot of people will be putting up their Christmas tree today or this afternoon. For me, growing up, it was always December 1st. Every year on December 1st, or as near as we could to that day, my family would pull down our Christmas decorations from the attic, and I'd run up and climb up onto the roof without a ladder, hanging over the edge, hanging up these Christmas lights while my worried mom would stand below, giving me grief. And then in the Episcopal Church and in other liturgical traditions, we have this whole season of Advent, la estación de Adviento, which is often forgotten about or rushed through. The Christmas season technically doesn't begin till Christmas Eve, the evening of Christmas. And it's the season of Advent, which leads us up to the time of Christmas. I think in most Episcopal churches, there's almost always this small handful of people that like to act as the Advent police. And they remind us there are no Christmas carols allowed until Christmas. No Hark the Herald Angels Sing. No Silent Night. No O Little Town of Bethlehem. No, we have to wait. Which is what the whole season of Advent is about. Waiting. Well, I have to tell you that today's the first day of Advent, and my family has had our Christmas decorations up for almost a month now. It's not like that every year. Most of the time, we try to wait until at least after Thanksgiving, and then even then, I'm trying to focus more on Advent than Christmas in my decorating. But this year has been just such a hard year, and we just couldn't wait. My wife and I had to make the hard decision that we were not going to go home and visit our families for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so we needed some of the joy, some celebration of Christmas. We needed twinkling lights and Christmas carols. Necesitábamos el gozo y la celebración de Navidad. I know Christmas doesn't begin for almost a month. But if Christmas were to come tomorrow, my family would be ready. Si la Navidad llegara mañana, estaríamos mañana. Pero hoy es el primer día de Adviento. Y nuestra lectura del Evangelio esta mañana es una imagen muy oscura, muy ominosa. Our gospel this morning paints a picture of the sun and the moon going dark and the stars falling out of the sky. Scholars often call this passage from Mark the little apocalypse, el pequeño apocalipsis. Today we often think of the word apocalypse to mean catastrophe or the end of the world, though in Greek it really just means revealing or unveiling. But here in this little apocalypse, it really does seem like the world is ending, doesn't it? Jesus is describing a time coming when there will be rumors of war and wars. There will be earthquakes and famines. There will be the persecution of the followers of Jesus, betrayed by their own family members. There will be false messiahs and false prophets who lead people astray. And we already mentioned the sun and the moon going dark and the stars falling out of the heaven. A lot of scholars believe the author of Mark was describing the Roman Empire's destruction of Jerusalem, which came just a few decades after Jesus in the year 70 CE. But in any case, this is a grim picture of a scary time. Parece que hoy estamos viviendo en nuestro propio pequeño apocalipsis, ¿no? We seem to be living in our own little apocalypse today, don't we? Maybe the stars aren't falling out of the sky, but we do have a climate change crisis and a non-stop burning of California forests and neighborhoods. There haven't been many reports of Christians being killed or persecuted in the United States recently, but every day we hear of black and brown men and women and non-binary people being killed in the streets and disproportionately incarcerated. I haven't heard much about false messiahs and false prophets trying to lead us astray, but we certainly are experiencing a political disintegration of truth with alternative facts and a questioning of who is even a legitimately elected official. And so, yes, we are living in our own little apocalypse. And I don't even mention this little thing called the COVID-19 pandemic, where our lives are turned upside down and we and our family and friends are experiencing a loss of mental and physical health, a loss of jobs, a loss even of our own lives. El mundo está lleno de sufrimiento ahora mismo. Y estamos viviendo en nuestro propio pequeño apocalipsis. Pero hay algo hermoso en esta lectura también. Es en el medio de la lucha apocalíptica que Cristo viene. In the midst of apocalyptic struggle, Christ, the Son of Man, comes to the world on clouds with great power and glory and sends his angels to gather up his elect from all around the world, his people. We think that what makes something apocalyptic is catastrophe. But if the word apocalypsis means unveiling, what makes something apocalyptic is the revealing of Christ coming into the world. What makes this moment apocalyptic is the coming of Christ into this world. So with this in mind, our passage this morning tells us over and over again, stay awake, be alert, manténganse despiertos, estén listos. Incluso en medio del sufrimiento y la desesperación, Cristo viene a nosotros y es nuestro trabajo velar por su venida. El Adviento es una estación de esperanza desafiante. The Advent is a season of defiant hope. It's a season when we look around at all the pain in this world and defiantly expect and hope for something better. Expect and hope that Christ still comes to us, that even in the midst of apocalypse, Christ is still coming. In fact, has already come and is still here, as he says in the Great Commission at the end of Matthew, remember, I am with you always to the very end of the age. But though Christ came, is coming, and will always come to us in the midst of suffering, it's our job to watch for his coming and to be ready to receive it so that it doesn't pass us by. We never know the exact moment when Christ comes to us. Pero si Cristo viniera mañana, deberíamos estar atentos y listos. If Christ were to come tomorrow, we ought to be watchful and ready. I know Christmas is still a month away, but if Christmas were to come tomorrow, my family would be ready. Si la Navidad llegara mañana, mi familia estaría lista. Our decorations are up, our lights are twinkling, our apartment is filled with the sound of carols. And maybe to some it looks like we're skipping over the season of Advent, but in my mind we're practicing the defiant hope of Advent. Though we're living in a world turned upside down, my family is choosing to celebrate the joy of Christmas, the joy of Christ coming into the world even now. Over the next 4 weeks in the season of Advent, I invite you to find your own way to practice defiant hope in our own apocalyptic moment. Los invito a encontrar su propia manera de practicar la esperanza desafiante en nuestro propio momento apocalíptico. Christmas decorations might not be your way. I know for many the holiday season brings a lot of conflicting emotions. But what might your way be of practicing defiant hope? Perhaps it's getting up each morning and eating breakfast and getting dressed when you'd rather hide from the world under the covers. Maybe it's putting your hands in the soil and growing something beautiful. Tal vez es ver a un terapeuta o practicar oración diaria. Maybe it's being an active member in a community organizing effort important to your neighbors. Maybe it's volunteering with the food bank, calling to check up on your neighbors, making handmade gifts for friends, or writing political advocacy letters to elected officials. Maybe it's as simple as taking a deep breath of fresh air. How might you practice defiant hope this Advent season? ¿Cómo podría cada uno de nosotros practicar la esperanza desafiante en este tiempo de Adviento? Why don't we take just a moment and think about it, reflect. How do we practice defiant hope? May we be defiantly hopeful. Que tengamos una esperanza desafiante. And keep awake. Y estemos despiertos. Because Christ is coming. Cristo viene. Even in the midst of our own little apocalypse. Incluso en medio de nuestro pequeño apocalipsis. Amén.